some good throws. So it's not necessarily that you need an entire new engine, which they already went and got. You could have just asked me, right? You didn't need anything done, but you have
it. Sorry about that. Had to turn the TV down. How y'all doing, my people? Hey, you know what I'm about to do? They got some things that I'm going to do later on this evening, but I'm about to go ahead and smoke a tri-tip. What I'm doing right now is saved y'all all of the foolishness. I got it trimmed down pretty good, okay? Most of the membrane's off. And I'm going to save a little bit of fat here for a little juiciness and tenderness and whatever else after I get it seasoned and marinated. So, you see right here, you can see these splits and striations in the cut. This is about like a maybe 3-pound tri-tip or whatever. Anyway, you see these striations right there? Without the membrane, you... Yeah, I'm about to get rid of that one, bro, because it's a long story. But I'm about to transition everybody over to this one. I'm actually going to get a straight out Invincible Chef Facebook thing just for that. But thanks for interrupting me. Anyway, so these gaps and striations that you can see there, they're going to be ideal for us holding the flavor once we go ahead and freaking put the marinade on there. Now, it's been clean. It's had the 3 baths. So we got all the excess of blood and everything else out. So now we got it set up here. I'm going to get my dredge, and where's the lid for it? Excuse me, I'm going to step off camera here for a second. There we go. I just refilled my dredge with this rub I made just night before last. And it's pretty mild compared to the others, but it's another one that's pretty much universal. You can use it for beef and pork, chicken, and a lighter version of it you can use for fish. But what it does is it gets absorbed in the meat really well, and it's good for smoking, which is primarily what I do. So like I said, we got us about a 3.5-pound tri-tip. We got it cleaned off. Got the excess of fat. We're going to leave a little bit, kind of a fat cap. It's about like 1/8 inch thick or so, and it's in a clump, which is good. That means most of the meat is lean. When we get the dredge here and start the seasoning, like you all know, I season from the wrist, not from the elbow. You know what I'm saying? You don't want an excess of this because the first coat is going to be massaged in, okay? Normally when I have these heavier cuts of meat, like a brisket and such, I'll start off by massaging it with extra virgin olive oil and then crushed garlic. But in the case with this one right here, I'm not going to use the olive oil because it cleaned up pretty well, and it's kind of got a little oily texture just from that fat that's on there. It's starting to render already since it's thawed out pretty well. So putting a light coat of the rub on there. Okay. Kind of get to where y'all can see that. There we go. Okay. And basically what I want to do is when I'm doing this is I like for it to fall gently onto the meat. Like when you watch out there and you get that sticky snow, and you're watching it finally starts to stick to things, falls down gently on it, kind of cascade down and land on the meat. Very important because that's how you get an even coat. Okay? And then once you get it on there, turn it over. Now this is where it's going to kill them because this is the side with the striations. Notice I use my fingers there and I'll spread them out a bit. Okay? So we can get the meat ready. There's a little bit of membrane left in connective tissue, but that's all right because once that seasoning gets in between there, it's going to be all good scenario. Next, with the finger, spread like this, like you're trying to catch a football. If you play that game, you're going to massage, get so you can see it there, massage it into the striations. Paying attention to make sure that across the cuts, because this is good because of the way this cut looks, I don't have to do much scoring. Which generally with the large cuts, you do a little scoring to get that seasoning in there and prepare for tender cuts when it comes out. Well, me, I like to get that first. It's like a lot of people put the rub on there. They have some kind of medium, whether it be mustard or something like that, to help the rub stick to and create a bark. Generally, I never do that. What I do, if I want a thick bark on something, then I'll generally use hickory because the smoke is thick and heavy, and it'll take the juices and the stuff in the just rub here, and it'll create a bark for it, for my brisket and everything like that. Now, I occasionally do that, but I think that most of my customers, I have a proprietary blend of woods that I use. And so they kind of prefer that to hickory. I'm not saying hickory isn't good, but I mean, you know, it's kind of like a standard. And I kind of like to shake things up when I do this. So as we get in there, make sure you hit the sides as well, where there's membrane there a lot. Like this right here, the difference between this and like say you do ribs or something like that, it's good to leave a little bit of membrane on the side here or whatever, because it's kind of like a little bit of a seal. So when the juices get to cooking themselves out or through the meat, right there, it's going to be kind of like a little border line that holds it in there, which is good. So as everybody can see, or you should be able to see, I'm just going ahead and continue massaging this in. Then I'm going to go ahead and get the dredge. And now I'm going to put a main coat on, okay? And you'll see it start sticking to it a little bit. This is a rub that my partner, Albert Rayford, showed me. It's a variation of the one he showed me with the brown sugar. I like that in this cigar because it'll caramelize a little bit on the outside. But generally, I avoid that unless, of course, I'm doing some heavy grilling. You know, but this right here is actually going to be done in a reasonable amount of time, since there's not that big of a cut. And I'll just throw it in the smoker. It's already primed, and it's set for about 225 degrees. I'm going to cook this, or smoke it as you were, at about 200 to start. Then I'm going to transition from 200 to 225. What that'll do for you is going to make the smoke penetrate deeper. That's how I get my chop. Yeah, ain't no secrets in barbecue. A lot of people, you know, say there's trade secrets and they hold on stuff. I'm not for that. It's all application. So, in order for me to get the deep smoke ring that my customers the people who eat my food have become accustomed to, because I don't too much alliteration there, is I start out the smoking, the first phase, at a lower temperature. Not so low that it's not heating up the meat ultimately, but anything like 190 or above. And I give it that for a good 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the weight and the cut of the meat. Because generally when you're smoking a large cut of meat, it's per pound or half a pound, the amount of time, depending on the texture of the meat and its density. So I'm going to finish up massaging in this main coat of the rub, which is getting into the fat too. And that's a benefit to leaving some fat on there. As you see that the seasoning gets into the fat and gets underneath the fat cap a little bit because of the way I massage it in. What that ends up doing is when the fat gets rendered, it will have flavor that's consistent with the rub and everything that's in there. And then that will be a nice juice for it to set in, like an au jus that's used for like a tri-tip sandwich. It's going to make a nice one that's going to set in the pan. And I had a secret for them though. Whenever I do these large briskets, okay, I have a butter-based injection I like to use sometimes. But when I make a really large one and it's lean, I'll use the injection to offset not having that doggone fat cap to break down. What ends up happening is when it makes its way out, it has the juices from the meat and it's cooked pretty well. It turns into almost like its own marinade, okay? And once you save that, the combination of the juice from the meat and the butter from that injection or whatever, you can boil that off, and then you can save it. And at that point, you can bring that back to any steak, doggone tri-tip, brisket, or whatever else, and just put a nice, maybe half an inch thick layer of it warmed in the bottom of the pan. You double wrap that in foil. It's going to cause problems. You know what I'm saying? You got all that intense flavor from before, and then it's going to be, the meat's already juicy, it's tender, and then what's going to end up happening is it's going to soak up that other flavor. Then when you slice it, that coupled with the ubiquitous smoke ring is going to give people something to be really excited about. Now, I have one more item to grab real quick. Lean parents. Now, due to its acidic nature, you know, it's going to help dissolve the seasonings and make it penetrate the meat. Now, it penetrating the meat in that manner starts the breakdown process or the full decomposition process, which will be counted by the cooking ultimately. But that's why the meat is almost making it a bit more porous and it's going to be more receptive to the smoke. So that's how when you start with that lower temperature, it smokes in the pen, because everybody says, oh, smoke only penetrate for such a certain amount of time or a certain distance. Got to take the academic approach, which I do. Those of you who know me for a long time know I was a nerd back in the day, so it applies to everything, to include my cooking. So the thing is, I get this Lean parents, and generally what I like to do, depending on what kind I use, I prefer this, but they have French's has a pretty decent one as well. Is that I would take this and I put it in a spray bottle and put on like basically spritz, and I spritz that so it just kind of falls on there, and then just pat it on there. I don't have to rub it in too deep because we already got the seasoning in there. But the thing about it is, since I don't have that, I'll pour some of it across, like you would say, we'll pour some steak sauce on a steak, let it set on there, and then just smooth that into those striations. Okay, like you're on the table getting a massage and you throw that oil on there to help moisturize the skin a bit. Okay, once you do that right there, all right. Now this is what this ultimately does. It seals in the flavor of the marinade, of the rub. Once it gets into the tissue of the meat, and this is where a lot of people fall short. They're wondering how they can't get that taste all the way through. The way I can get the flavor all the way to the bone and my ribs and all the way through and across my brisket and everything else is to make sure this is muscle tissue. Some people need to understand. So to get it in there, you have to massage it. Just like you're putting on, you got your Tiger Balm or your Bengay or whatever else for your muscles. You want to get rid of that pain. And you'll see, if you've done it right, you can see all in the striations there. Okay? All those cuts and striations, you can see that seasoning has made its way all the way in there. If you look really close, which you can't see it with the camera I'm using right now, you can see the actual seasoning in the tissue of the meat and those striations, which I think is integral to getting that flavor that you want. So I'm about to throw this on the smoker, and God willing, and the creek don't rise. Hey, what's up, B? I see you. God willing, and the creek don't rise. I'll have this out in time to be able to slice it up and show y'all what's really hood. So, once again, I am Ian Moore, the Invincible Chef. I was just sharing with you guys a short video on prepping a tri-tip, and hopefully I get this done in a manner in which I can go ahead and show y'all the end result, you know, as far as slicing it up and everything. Till which time I can, God bless y'all, peace be with you, and y'all have a good evening.